based coaching, we want to focus on magnifying people's strengths, don't focus on weaknesses. I wouldn't focus too much on that slide. Although one key learning kind of points around strengths, I'd say that's something that I learned in my MBA. I was very surprised that we were being provoked, or what was being emphasized is like, I thought we have weaknesses and we should always hone our weaknesses and work on them and improve. But it's actually quite the opposite. You want to make sure that you're very conscious and cognizant of what your strengths are, and you want to make sure that you're harnessing those and working on those, because time is limited in life, and you want to get going as soon as possible. Just leave it at that. The final process theory of motivation is equity theory. Okay? And the key premise of equity theory and how it actually generates motivation or effort from human beings, essentially what we're saying here is that as human beings, and we've already talked about this in perception and previous lectures, we engage in quite a bit of social comparison. Okay? We always look at what the other person is doing, how they're doing, what their outcomes are. Are they better off than us? Are we worse off than them? Right? We engage in the social comparison quite a bit across different things in life. Okay? And we definitely do it on the job. We do it kind of relative to our coworkers and our colleagues. We're always kind of looking at them, seeing what they're getting. Are they doing better than us? Okay? Are they putting in the same level of effort as us to start with? So we're always engaging in the social comparison. And also another kind of comparison that we're doing more so on a personal level is, we get hired, we sign a certain contract, and we're expected to do certain things on the job, okay? And we're promised certain outcomes, okay? Rewards, benefits, all that, certain level of treatment from your boss. We're always kind of assessing, am I getting my fair share or am I not, right? So you're always engaging in this comparison on a personal level. You're always saying, am I getting my fair share? Am I getting an appropriate amount of outcomes for my inputs or not? So you do it at a personal level first. But also you always look at the person next to you and you say, are they better off than me? Are they getting more outcomes for their inputs? Or are they not? Are they at that equal level? So essentially what we like to achieve is that equity. We always look at the ratio of my outcomes to my inputs versus my coworkers' outcomes to my coworkers' inputs. Okay? So we're always assessing what am I getting for my inputs, but I'm also concerned with what my coworker or the person next to me is getting for their inputs. And we always want to make sure that there's equity, or they're on par with each other. When we sense that there's an inequity, okay, that's when we get kind of like, that's when we're triggered to actually change things up. Okay? So that's when we kind of mobilize, and that's when we start kind of getting motivated to change things around. So if I am putting in a certain level of inputs, and my coworker is putting in a certain level of inputs as well, but they're getting more outcomes than me, right? You're going to probably be seeking to have a chat with your boss about getting a raise, let's say, right? Or you might say kind of, okay, maybe I need to be putting in more. If they're receiving more outcomes, maybe there's something I'm not putting in as much of. Okay? So that mobilizes you. That gets you going. Whenever there's an inequity, right, that's what gets you going. And there are different scenarios and different outcomes that could emerge from this inequity that is causing tension. Okay? So if I feel that I'm not getting enough outcomes for my inputs, I may reduce my inputs. I may say, well, you know what? Not all of my inputs are going rewarded, so I'm gonna scale back a bit. You may do something like that. Okay? I'm gonna spend less time at work helping others because I'm not getting paid for that overtime. Okay? You may try to increase your outcomes, so you may go to your boss and say, listen, I'm putting in a lot of extra hours, I want compensation for them. Okay, so that's another approach. So you're either kind of working on your outcomes component, either the numerator or the denominator in a sense. Let's say, for example, your coworker is not doing as much work, and they're not receiving, and they're receiving a lot, like the same level of outcomes for their work. Okay, so there's kind of a level of unfairness there, right? They're getting more than they deserve. So you may ask for more work to be allocated to them. They need to put in more inputs, right? They're trying to get to that equity level. Okay? Or you may ask your boss kind of like, why are they getting this many outcomes? That needs to be reduced. So again, you're either working on their numerator or on their denominator in a sense. Sometimes some other things, because there could be kind of some pitfalls, like you might be comparing yourself to the wrong person, let's say, right? It's inaccurate to compare myself to what the CEO is making, okay? Like, there's no basis for comparison there, right? We're in two different roles. The CEO's salary is determined by very different things. I cannot compare myself to the CEO. So you might change your point of reference, right? Who you're comparing yourself against, that could change, okay? If you feel that the inequity is quite drastic, if it is a sign that things are really bad in this organization, you may choose to leave, right? Procedural justice is not there. I'm not happy here anymore. My work is going unnoticed, and nothing has been done about it. I choose to quit, okay? And another thing that we've mentioned so far is your perceptions, right? Because this is all based on what you're perceiving the others are doing, and what you're perceiving to be getting, and what you're perceiving to be inputting in the company, right? So sometimes it could be a matter of maybe you're being unrealistic, right? Maybe you need to take a step back and make sure that you're more objective in your assessments, okay? So different scenarios could emerge here. But essentially the key takeaways here, human beings seek that equity, right? They want to make sure that they're just as well off as others in their organization. And they want to make sure that they're getting their fair share from their organization, okay? Two key takeaways, I'd say, from this. Thoughts about equity theory or questions about it? Questions about any other things from today's lecture? Last chance. There's two chapters you don't want to miss. It's the motivation chapter and the decision-making chapter coming up. Good? Okay. Let's talk about the case. The format details are in the syllabus at the end, toward in the appendix, so consult those. Okay. In terms of submission, hard copy is due here at the start of the class, and also electronic copy is going to be due online. I'll open up a Dropbox on the D2L page for you to submit your assignment there. Essentially, the case is like a page and a half or 2 pages long, very quick to read. It's about ethical misconduct at SNC-Lavalin. And it's accompanied by 3 discussion questions that are very application-oriented. Okay, this is from chapter 2. The first question is concerned with you applying the Mars model, right? So the different factors or predictors or antecedents to individual behavior in organizations. Okay, so understanding what it is that is predicting this unethical behavior at SNC-Lavalin within their executives. Okay, that's the first question. The second question is focused on 2 specific aspects that we also discussed in that chapter, which are moral intensity and moral sensitivity. And they're asking you to outline how in the case those elements are present and how the executives in this situation are kind of dealing with those 2 elements, or how they exhibit them or not exhibit them. Okay? So you're essentially looking for kind of proof from the case as to kind of where are the flaws in their moral sensitivity and moral intensity, or where are the flaws not only in the executives, but perhaps in the situation, I would say, right? And lastly, it's a very kind of managerial or decision-making type of question where we're asking you, what are some things that could be implemented at SNC-Lavalin to make sure that this is circumvented? Okay? So that's kind of the essence of those 3 questions. I chose this case with those 3 discussion questions because they truly will get you working on application. Okay, so I think this is kind of like the extreme of like what you might get on the exam in terms of using theory and applying it. I think this will be a good training opportunity for that. So yeah, I'll leave the floor to you to ask questions surrounding the case. Anybody who started dabbling with it? Yes. Any scholarly reports that you have to use? If you find, ideally, yes, if you find something that is of benefit to you, kind of surrounding those, like maybe not the Mars model specifically, but a relation between like personality and unethical behavior behavior, sure, cite it there, I would say. Moral intensity and moral sensitivity, you might find some things there. Let's say you find research that talks about some ideas for things the managers at SNC Lavalin could do to prevent that. That's somewhere where you might kind of consult some scholarly sources. Scholarly sources, like, we're not talking blogs, okay, like by just kind of anybody who's a manager, not a good idea there. It's usually peer reviewed, okay, so consult HBR, Harvard Business Review, because they usually kind of provide summaries of major empirical studies that researchers have done. So I'd say that's a good place to look at for that when you're looking for any ideas for initiatives, okay. So yeah, ideally I'd say try to go the extra mile and do that.
So we have to use that particularly in textbook just fine. Assuming textbook is that hard as well.
If you want to rely on the textbook, go for it. I'm just saying it may not be sufficient to answer all of your questions, okay? Because like I can tell you, for example, for number 3, I doubt the textbook has a lot of information surrounding initiatives and ideas for initiatives.
So you're saying you should use a reference for smart?
I think it'll make your assignment richer and it'll give you more content.
Well, I mean, you did say there's a maximum of 6 pages. Is there like an average you're going for?
No, if it's a maximum, it's a maximum. Yeah.
What? How about the minimum?
Oh, I don't matter. I'm someone who's very concise. I appreciate conciseness. So I would say once you feel your message has been communicated and you've driven your point home, stop. Don't like add more jargon and add sentences that are unnecessary just for the sake of adding pages. The number of pages is hardly ever a good representation of how good of an assignment you turned in. There are some people like return like so I force my upper year students to submit 1-page case analysis. So I would say take that as a guideline for kind of how much jargon there should be. Other questions?
Is there any particular style you want the case to be?
It's ABA formatting. Try to avoid flowery language, just executive style, communication, to the point.
So are you to not display the specific chapter for the 3 chapters of the chapter?
If you find material that is relevant in other chapters, go for it.
6.
I would say motivation actually is quite a good chapter to talk about when it comes to look at when it comes to this. And remember, the Mars model includes motivation, for example. The Mars model also includes perception and values. So, like those are all specific chapters in the textbook. So you might be turning to. So, if you use, yeah, for sure. Okay. In text citations, absolutely. If you're taking ideas from someone else, if you're exactly quoting someone else, yeah, for sure. No, not at the bottom. References go up in a list at the end. Okay. So for example, Patrick was also asking in-text citations. So within the text, if you're taking an idea as part of your analysis from someone else, you want to make sure that you're giving them credit for it there. And, okay.
Is this MLA or
ABO?
Do you need a table of contents? And also for the answers, you said no introduction and no conclusion, just.
Yay! Just answer the 3 questions. Okay. Don't recap the case like I've read it, you've read it, everybody's read it. Don't give me a recap and an introduction. Don't give me just answer the 3 questions. So label them. Question 1, question 2, question 3, and offer your analysis. Some people I could see kind of maybe you might be introducing some figures, right? Like if you might be using charts.
Since we're turning it in and these questions are on the textbook, right? What we actually quoted the questions on pages, and then we
Don't quote the question. Watch.
No,
Question 1.
Oh, we don't.
I don't know it's like
Because in that appendix it says.
because it says
Don't do it. Does it say that in the appendix? Okay, don't. Don't. But even if you do put the question, there's no need for reference. I need to, question 1 at least, like period. Like just question 1, just to give me an indication as to where you are in your writing. No, I cannot. Copyright issues. It's basically me giving you the textbook for free.